Why I think borders are stupid. Well, hello everyone. My name is Gab, and welcome to my podcast. So, I was talking with my friend Luc the other day, and I was mentioning him about like how stupid I think borders, especially some borders. I was just making a quick point to say, what if we had no borders and people could just go wherever they want? Because it's kind of what we live in. People can still go wherever they want. Just make a quick comment and then moved on. We edited a short with that. Turns out it's the short that have the most comments so far. People are going crazy about this no border thing. And, well, it's it seems to me like then a good topic and conversation to talk about borders. Okay, so let's do like what is a border, right? Let's start with the beginning. Border is kind of a line that will divide two countries. Okay, but there's a bit of a problem right there. A country doesn't really exist, like we made that up, right? Like you have the earth, and the earth is like a sphere, and it's like that's it. That's like where we live. It's the earth. But then through history, and then like the way that it evolved, we were like very kind of like us and not them a little bit. Like we were able to gather in people that more or less speak the same language. Okay, so if you speak the same blah blah as me, you're like one of mine. And if they speak over there, they speak another blah blah, then it's another group. We can maybe trade with them, but most probably we're gonna fight with them. Okay, and then the line that divides like the different people who speak different language is then called a border. Okay, and then it's just like evolved for like thousands of years through wars and deals and stuff that is really not that, like, people think it's serious, but like maybe a little historical context could help. Like, how was those borders put there? Like, who decided that that's the invisible line? All right, so let's take a few examples. Okay, so where I grew up, like I grew up in Maryville, okay, just like outside Montreal. We're about 30 minutes, 45 minutes away from the border between Canada and the United States. And the border in that region, more or less, was put there during a pseudo war. Okay, it was 1812. So most of the borders they were created in that era. Napoleon and the French Revolution and the years that followed. We're still with those borders. Okay, 200 years ago. Perfect. And what happened? Well, in France and Spain, like many things happened, but Canada and the US, like not a lot happened. Okay. So it was kind of like Canada was kind of like England back then, more or less. So defended by soldiers and like from England. And then like French Canadian were just in farms trying to survive. And they didn't really care about the borders. Okay. So then at some point, the Americans, they were like, let's send some war boats in, like, up the Richelieu, okay, all the way to the Fleuve, and then can turn right to Quebec or left to Montreal. And then they cross the Champlain Lake. And then when you arrive at the end of the lake, there is a river, Richelieu, and there is an island, and there is a fort, the Fort Lennox. Okay, and there was like 10 guys defending the border against this huge warship that arrived from New York, full of soldiers. And so the Americans were like, had better numbers, better guns, better everything. They started to shoot the cannons at the like 10 guys who were there, like, what the fuck? So they just like took a canoe and crossed to the side. They were like, no, like there's no way we can defend the fort. Let's say that's it. Take it. All right. So they took it. Then a second warship arrived. They see people in the fort. They're Americans, but back then they didn't have like a good communication system. So they started to shoot at them. So Americans shot at Americans, just took the fort. While the English soldiers were like, I have a friend who have a chalet. They were like at Saint Paul les Launois, just checking the show, eating popcorn. All right. Now the Americans arrive, shoot at the other Americans in the fort. And then at some point, they all get tired, out of munition. They just like leave the fort to regroup. The other leave like the boat. They just leave. We need food. We're out of something, whatever. And then the English that were waiting on the side of the river took back the fort. That's it. That's where the border is. So, all right. So let me ask you a question. Does that seems like a serious way to draw an invisible line between two countries? Is that like, is that something that needs to be respected and upheld at all costs? So it's like, your opinion are valid. But my opinion is that it's not very serious. Like, it's so stupid that now 200 years later we still have a line, and you can cross the line, but you need a special little book called the passport. We're like, I have the special book. You can cross the invisible line. The invisible line that was put there 200 years ago by a group of guys who shot at each other, made a mistake. Anyway, it's a good line. All right. So that's the line near I grew up. And then I could give you a 10,000 example, but I will take the worst, Africa. So Africa was like, after, let's say, the English, the French, and the Spanish, they were like, let's go to America and like seize everything of value that we can find over there. They kind of all, more or less, for a while, were at peace with each other. Okay, especially the French and the English. Back then, like that was pretty special that they were not fighting for the first time in 1,000 years. And then they were more like, what if we like not fight each other and go to the rest of the world and take everything? Okay. And then they went to Africa, they went to Asia, like it's in China, they just like completely took over like the entire district. They created cities in Shanghai and took over districts. And then they went to Africa. And so then there was what? The Dutch were in South Africa. You had the Belgians and Congo. You had French everywhere. English were like taking the north. So it was like just, they were just like everywhere, taking over everything. And then at some point they were like, oh yeah, like they all fight each other because they don't like each other, because probably they had like some kind of like borders not really drawn in any map back then. And so they decided to more or less divide the stuff. And a little like, let's say I buy a land. Let's say I buy a land, and we just like decide to divide and give a little bit to each of my friends. Well, they just drew a bunch of lines. From here to here, that's you. But daddy, I like this lake. Okay, like you can have the lake. Let's carve this and make a divisible. Let's make lines on a map. It's like it's must have been a cool weekend. Okay, to draw those lines. And then turns out that they created things like completely on a map, but like on the ground. They were dividing like entire families, ethnical group. Like you had like the factory on one side of the borders, then the like all the resources on the other side of the border. Then it created a mess. That still to this day, like, still stuck with that mess. So let me ask you this: like, do you think that's like good borders, well drawn borders? Like, are they? Could they be revisited? Maybe. We'll give you another example. Okay, so the English, like in the 1800s, they were like, let's take over everything. Let's just like, where we have boats, let's go everywhere and take over everything. That's it. That's what we want. Everything. So then they went to India. They were like, that's it. It's good. Let's take over this entire thing. Seems reasonable. So you'll have to. You can exist, like you can still live more or less, but you'll have to pay us money, like a good old mafia. So they went there and took over. They couldn't fight. It was like they have warships and guns and cannons and shit. And it's just like in India they had like none of that. Okay, so it just took over the entire thing. Then at some point there was a movement to like say maybe this is India and not the UK. Maybe we're a little far from England, and it doesn't really make sense that it's part of like some kind of English empire. That doesn't really make sense, right? We're in India. Okay, there was like this little guy with glasses called Gandhi who was like, yeah, like I really think we're in India. And then that was like, oh, what did he say? You know, you're not allowed to say that. Like, we're not in India. But then, after years and years of decades of like, the idea grew. Like, people were like, hey, maybe we could take over back like India and like, have it for ourselves. But then there was this movement in the Northwest where they were like, well, if it's not the UK, then we're not in India. No way. No. We want to be in Pakistan. We don't want to be a minority in an Hindu country. We want to have our own country where we'll be like, just like it will be ruled by, we have another religion. So that's it. We're not the same country. And then it was like, oops. Then decades of negotiation and stuff. And at the end, they said, like, fine, let's do two countries then. But how are we going to draw the line? Well, how about we choose this guy? The guy with the books is like, what? Me? No. Like, yeah, you'll be the guy. We all agree it's you. You will draw the line, and whatever line you draw, we're going to abide by it. All right. Then the guy, poor guy, he's just like, was like, okay, I'll go see. Then wherever he went, he was like assaulted by people saying, like, don't try the line here, try it somewhere else. Like I have farms, I have land, my grandmother, blah, blah, blah. So he ended up doing his job like kind of alone in the room. Fuck it. I can't go anywhere. I'll do it here. Try to, like, what if I tried here? Maybe here? And then at the end, it was like kind of like, like this. This is the line I decided to draw. All right. And then, like, it was revealed at some point, like, let's at midnight, there's some time, and then bam, this is the line. And then it was like, oh shit. There was like huge mistakes in that line. Like, the factory was on that side, all the like the resources to make the factory run was on the other side. Some villages were like divided in two. Some villages were like Hindu and Islamists have been living for like thousands of years in peace, suddenly erupted in war. And then the Hindu and Pakistan started to just gather their shit and leave and do like a just walk to be in India. And then same, the people that wanted to live in Pakistan that were like on the wrong side of the border, they started to leave because then they were anyway. People went crazy and started to kill everyone. And then there was these trains that would get hijacked because people were getting on the train, and then the trains were getting hijacked by people who just like completely lose their shit and then killing everyone on the train. And then the train arrives on the other side. Everybody's dead. Everybody's dead, and then they're all killing each other. It's crazy stuff, like, crazy. And then that border still exists today between India and Pakistan. The tensions still are there. So let me ask you this: does it seem to you like a good drawn border? Could we revisit the line? So that's it for the historical context. Okay, it's like I don't have that many examples, but I'm sure if I dig a little bit, I will find like 1,000 examples like that. So my big revolutionary idea, according to the people who comment on my stuff, is that what if we had no borders? Eh? What if we could just go wherever we want? Guess that's the thing. We can still cross a border. Like it might come as a shock to many people, but it's not because you put an invisible line that we can't cross it. We can still cross it, you know. And you have two ways of crossing it. Like what some people call the illegal ways, just to walk across. Like because how are you gonna protect an invisible line? It's good luck. It's not a real line. There's no mountains there. There's no like oceans or something uncrossable that's crossable. Like most of them, it's just like you just walk around and then you're on the other side and nothing happens. Well, so there's that. But then, like the big thing is like it's illegal. But most of those people they smoke weed and it's illegal and they drive too fast and that's illegal too. So it's like you do something illegal, okay, fine. But there's the legal way, which is just show up and then show a bunch of documents. You're like, all right, like here's document number one. Okay, I have my passport, my little thingy with my stamps. It's my stamp collection here. Like this is also part of my little pile of document. And then at some point, like they want more. Okay, you give more. Like you create a pile. Now your pile of document to cross that border must be this thick because you come from there and you try to go there. So that's the minimal amount of paper that you must show me. But there's always like an acceptable amount of paper to show, and then you cross the border. Why? Why? What is that achieving for anyone, really? Aren't we just like losing time and resources? Can't you just like let people go? And then like people will go wherever they want, and then maybe we can redraw new borders, maybe from time to time. It's been 200 years since Napoleon and the wars and the stuff. Like, can't we revisit some of them? But when you revisit them, people go crazy because, like, I'm on the wrong side. It's so, and that's it. That's my old editorial stuff on borders. Look, I am a traveler. I cross borders. I cross borders just so many times, and then every time I'm like, this is so stupid. It's like you can go there, but before you have to talk to the police. But they're not called police. They're called like custom agent. It's like a police, but different. Like it's not really police, it's custom agent, but same. They can do whatever they want. They can sit you in a room for 2 days, whatever. They can ask you questions, give me your phone, whatever. Like the police, let's say. And then sometimes you cannot cross the invisible line. I don't think it happened to me, but it happened to people I know. Like sometimes it's just no. You didn't say the proper thing. You said something I didn't like. No, go back. I don't let you cross. And then 100% of the time that I know, like the people go back and then they were like, oh shit, I said something I shouldn't have said. Let's go back. Let's not say that. take a flight again, try to cross the line. That time it works because they did say the proper. They say the proper thing. It's the second time. So, in a nutshell, guys, this is why I think borders are stupid. Now, I know that I don't have a super like most people. They love borders. They love them. They love the line, and this line was drawn by Napoleon in 1812, and that's perfect. It must be upheld at all costs. Look, that's a 200-year-old line. Let's hope it lasts for 2000, right? And I know you guys love like maybe border control. I don't know, like this, like, and then there are places where there's real borders problems, like let's say Mexico and the U.S. It seems to me like a fairly dangerous place, and I don't think I have all the answers to that. I just think they're stupid. I just think you could lift all of them and nothing would happen. Really, people would move for like 10 years and then they would resettle in new locations on Earth. But most of them would just stay where they are. So I think nothing really would happen. Okay. Uh, but I know that's not a very popular opinion. So feel free to disagree with me. I will try to answer everyone in the comments. Okay. But feel free to disagree with me. It's just like I will ask for one thing. It's just like when you assume that everything will go to shit, don't confuse by that you know that everything will go to shit, right? But because you don't really have data, because it's never been done. But that's small special request. And that's it. I'm gonna take a few questions now from the web that talks about border. And that's it. Let's see what the internet asks about borders. Do you know countries that have open borders? So in Europe, they have the Schengen space and the European Union. It's complicated, but let's say Europe, let's make it simple. Europe, they had the borders, and then they said, let's get together and remove the borders that we have between us, and let's just create a bigger border outside. Okay, so what really happens is like let's say you go from France to Germany, there's no borders, you just walk right through. You can see often like old buildings and stuff, like the borders are there and they could theoretically be put back, I guess, but there's no one there. There's really no one, and you just walk across a border. It's a pretty special experience. It's a little bit weird. But it's when you arrive in Europe, let's say by flight, 100% of the time that I went to Europe, it was by flight. You cross the border at the airport. And wherever you are, that stamp is valid for all the countries. Okay. So they are they open borders? Well, not really, in the sense that instead of crossing the border like 10 times, you just cross it one time, but it's just a bigger border. But I never been to a place where you can just like arrive, you know. But I guess Europe would be the closest I know to open borders. What was East Germany's biggest problem after it opens its borders? And the answer is East Germany's biggest problems after it opened its borders was the loss of a large numbers of skilled workers, which led to economic difficulties and a collapse in social systems. So when it became clear that East and West Germany, the people could travel, then the skilled workers like doctors and everything, they were getting to the other side to make more money. And for a while, I agree that let's say you open borders, it frees some people to do whatever they want. So they go somewhere else when back then maybe they couldn't, right? So you have more freedom, then it leads to some place seeing a degradation and stuff like this. No more doctors. Is it a problem? Yes. Is it fixed by now? Because that was 1990. And I agree that if you open the borders, there's going to be a 10-year period. But let's say you go to East Germany now, it's quite all right. No? It was fixed after a while. Which country borders the most nations? And the answer is China and Russia. So they have like an incredible number of borders. Um, it's like Russia, the border is so big, it's insane. It goes all the way from like Mongolia, China, like South Korea, all the way to like Finland and like Ukraine. And that's another subject in itself. Like when people want to move the border because some grandiose man is there sitting in an office, like I must go down in history as the border mover. And people go to war and throw shit at each other. So yeah, China and Russia. It's a good thing that China doesn't want to expand its border for now. Why do borders often create more problems than they solve? Good question. You create a restriction in like on Earth. Huh? It's just like you cannot cross that forest anymore unless you have a pile of paper. The thing is, like, we can always gather the damn pile of paper to cross the border. It's just like you lose the time for the people who want to cross to gather the pile of paper. It's very long, like some doctor. Yeah, it's always like it's doable. And then you have to pay people to analyze that damn pile of paper. What for? What's the goal? They're still gonna cross. So it's like just a huge loss of time and resources to me. How do borders contribute to inequality among nations? That, that's the thing. Okay, so I'll give you another example. Way back when the English and the French, but mainly the English, were drawing maps. They liked to draw maps. They were map enthusiasts. And then the Americans came in and they were like, we want to draw maps too. So then they all sat together. It was like not the countries that sat together. It was like four guys in a room. That's it. Don't mistake. Just like all kind of like drinking and like, let's get the hookers after we draw the map because I like a hooker after I draw a map. But let's draw the map first. Okay, so we have to draw lines in the Middle East. Again, they have like oil. Like we understood that oil will be important. So how do we divide that? Well, there's Egypt. Was about like 150 million or whatever people there, and then there's Saudi Arabia, which is a group of tribe. They're not really kind of together. They're more like little tribes. And how do we draw this? And then there was this big idea at that table that the guy had that is like maybe it will be easier to control them, like the resources and the people there, if it's a smaller group than a bigger group. Hey, that's a great idea, buddy. All right. So let's draw it like this. Saudi Arabia, you get like all the oil for those like 20 million people. They get all the oil. Bam, that's it. You just won the lottery. Egypt, you're too many. It's like we don't understand really what's happening there. So you get none. Let's draw it like this. No oil for Egypt, all the oil on the side for those guys because there are less people. So, how do borders contribute to inequality among nations? Well, something like that. Can borders be considered a form of discrimination? Like, look, you can use the word that you want, but yes, like uh, when they have like let's say in Switzerland, because they have some little borders, they're kind of like we're part of the Europe, but not like as much. But so they have like these like flying borders or whatever. So sometimes you have a border. So then a border agent get into the train. It's like passport. Canada doesn't even look. Europe doesn't even look. Go up like a red passport. Where's that? Iran. Open your shit. Like it's like random check for you. Like I wonder why. Like it's just like yeah, for sure, for sure. Are borders necessary for maintaining national security? In my opinion, no. They're in fact the opposite. They don't. They just make an area around the border very unsafe. But then people still cross, and then you still have to have national security, I guess, within your thing, which is really like kind of make your city safe. But forget about like a line. It's just like it has to be safe everywhere. So I don't think it does maintain national security. But I'm sure people will disagree on this one. Are borders an obstacle to achieving global human rights standard? I think so. Yeah, I think like maybe in 1,000 or 10,000 years, maybe we'll have getting rid of them, and then it will more be like you're a human, perfect. You're on Earth, perfect. Then that's how we qualify human right, a human on Earth, and not like you're a human. Yes, on Earth. Yes, from where? What do you mean? Which forest? Then you have a list of rights, and also like maybe you won the lottery, maybe you didn't. Let's see in 10,000 years. Are borders a reflection of power dynamics and geopolitics? Yes, they're more a reflection of like some guys in a room 200 years ago decided to draw a line or to go to war to push it by 10 kilometers. So there were a reflection of grandiose guys in a room deciding to do something, and in many cases, a giant group of guys not knowing that they don't have to listen to them. That would be called the army. Like, you have to fight. Oh, really? I didn't know. Like, now you're dead. So they're a reflection of grandiose man who wants their like name on a map. Are borders a barrier to achieving sustainable development goals? Um, they're they're a barriers to they're a barrier to many things. It's like sometimes you have resources on both sides of a border, and then they go to war just because the resources is on the both side of the border. If you remove the border, then maybe they could talk. Yes. How do borders contribute to the fragmentation of global financial systems? I don't know. The global financial system is also based on currencies, and currencies are based on those borders. So if you remove the borders, I guess you remove the currency. Then you can choose one currency, the US yuan, to be the only currency that we have. But that again will be something to be seen in 10,000 years. We'll see in 10,000 years. Are borders a tool for authoritarian regime to suppress freedom of speech? It's not that the border is a tool, it's within the borders. They can operate freely because, like, on the other side of the borders, the other people are like, well, it's not on my side of the line, so whatever happened on the other side, I don't care. Are borders an outdated concept in the age of globalization? Yes, they are. That's my opinion. Like, look, I know like some people will so disagree with that. Can borderless societies exist without compromising security? I think so. Like, I think it has nothing to do with it. I don't think they increase security. Quite the opposite. But look at the United States and Mexico; they decrease security like by a lot. So it's like I don't think they serve any purpose. Any none. How do borders impact the movements of goods and services? They restrict it. They restrict goods and services to go from one side to the other. Now you can sell your stuff on the other side of the border, but you have to talk to the police. You have to present a pile of documents. And then it's kind of like, okay. And then if you don't have the proper pile of documents, then you can't sell your goods and services. But then sometimes it's just like very stupid. I have blueberries. Why can't I sell them there? No, you can, but you have to apply a 25% tax because people on the other side, they can produce for that cheap and we want them to produce for that cheap. And then it's like a whole mess. And then after that, they realize that it's a mess and they make like these trade agreement. Okay. So between those two countries, three countries, let's say Canada, Mexico, the United States, like goods and services aren't treated like people. We will not restrict goods and services. Okay. Except this list of 10 things. Milk, 2.302, like wood, why? This is just like apply the same rules that goods, services, and people can go wherever they want. You have a truck of stuff that you want to sell, go sell it anywhere, whatever. So they impact the movement, they restrict it. What are the economic benefits of open borders? Well, just like no restriction in goods, services, and people, and the market kind of like takes care of the rest. It self optimizing thing. Do borders hinder efforts to address global health crises? Yeah, that's like so. COVID was a good example of now. Okay, we have borders. Yeah, but the virus doesn't really stop at the border, right? So it was a good example of now we have to get together because we're stuck with this problem like on earth. The border, the real border between like solid crust and space. That's a border that I can respect. Let's say it's like that's a very real border. Okay, like the can't go there. And so we're stuck on this crust here. That's the border, and that was a good example of why I think borders are stupid and things should be dealt on Earth by humans. My opinion, guys. Now, feel free to go in the comment and go nuts. It will be a pleasure to initiate a discussion with you on why borders I think are stupid. And I will be trying to address the comments in a subsequent video. Until then, it was a pleasure. If you like this video, well, subscribe, go find me. Like I have a bunch of links. click on everything. You'll find me on TikTok, Spotify, everywhere. Guys, it was a pleasure. Ciao.